Hey everyone, Dr. Devynne here with Junction Healing Arts and Middle Path CrossFit. Last week on Refining the 33, we shared a conversation surrounding week one of our new journaling and writing practice that we've integrated into our gym space. That recording was shared from the video that we presented directly to our members with a little bit of an invitation for anybody else who is listening along or following along to join us in this practice. And so this is part two of that same series and sequence, but with new topics and new shares that we've covered in the gym this week. So if you are curious about what this pivot is, I would invite you to listen back to last week's episode where we dove into more of why and what we're doing, but to also get the foundation of where we're starting. And then this week is a continuation of that and covers the last week and a half's worth of writing invitation and some of the bigger topics that have come up. Within that, we have also worked in just some more lighthearted and general check-ins of, hey, how are you feeling at this point in the week? But these videos are covering those bigger conversations and offerings we are giving them. If you're someone who listened to last week's episode and you picked up a pen and started following along with us, these will be the next topics that we covered. And if you're listening to this for the first time or you're finding this for the first time, you can dive right in with us, watch back on last week's episode and get our starting line. And we'd love to have you join us. What you're about to listen to is a recording specifically for our members, walking them through the questions that we covered and a little more depth around the topics. Follow along, and you can also join us on Jingshen Academy. We have a group set up called Strength and Stillness, where we are also dropping all of these topics. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you and share them below. Otherwise, enjoy the conversation. Hey guys, so in case you missed it last week, I'm also going to start doing these videos and conversations surrounding the writing and journaling that we are doing in the gym. These are just an opportunity for you when you feel like you have more time and space to sit with the different themes in here, revisit some of the things that we're presenting to you in class, and give you an opportunity to dive a little deeper and lean in different ways. This will be the second one that we've done. If you missed the first one, you can find it in a couple different places. It's posted in our community group within the member app. It can also be found on our platform through our clinic, The Art of Nourishing Life. So if you are in there, it is also posted in our Strength and Stillness room and really easy for you to find. I'm also reposting the questions as well as a little bit of a description of how the practice evolved for the week. So a couple of different places for you to find it if you're not ready to tackle this now or you want to pick this up and revisit at a later date. Just look back in both of those places and we'll go from there. So this today is Thursday, October 2nd. This video today is going to cover some of the questions and topics that we covered last week in the gym, as well as the front half of this week, which is ultimately how I expect these videos to go, backtracking just a little bit and giving you an opportunity to sit and reflect and take in these concepts in a different lens. So last week, our big theme and topic that we got into were non-negotiables. And the question that we posed was, what are the practices, rhythms, or flows that you come back to again and again? Are there things that you are doing that help you feel grounded, nourished, and supported? It could be an activity by yourself. It could involve other people. But what are those things that you do not negotiate with yourself on as far as things that you need as part of your daily rhythm, weekly, monthly rhythms, and that you just need to feel good and again, grounded and supported and moving through life. The caveat with that is that your non-negotiables should be things that you are actively doing in your life And so there was also an invitation to create a secondary list, which is kind of your wish list of things that you know would be helpful and supportive to you, but maybe right now you don't feel like you have the time, the energy, the resources to make that happen. We wanted the primary message to fall on the non negotiables, the things that you are actively doing and are a big part of your world. They don't necessarily have to be daily practices. They could be something that you know you need to integrate into your week, something that you know you like to make sure you touch at least once a month. Any farther out than that, we're kind of having different conversations. But I think the first ask is, can you identify that? Or do you connect with the things that you choose to do in your life? Do you connect to them in a way that you think of them as practices, or are they just things that you happen to do and have never really thought about it in that way? The wish list was kind of a secondary invite of maybe the things that you used to do or things that you do less frequently than monthly that you're like, man, I know that if I would do this more, that this would be super helpful for me feeling more clear-headed or like I'm more settled into my rhythms and routines, but it's hard to make space for. And so that wish list is going to circle back around down the road. But I do think it's important for us to have both, right? Do we have anything on our current non-negotiables, or are we just kind of showing up in life and checking the box and we're not really, not that we're not doing things intentionally, but that we're not really consciously trying to make happen? Is our wish list really long and the non-negotiables list very short, or vice versa? And so there's a lot of different ways that you can go with that. After we gave some time for you to work through that, and if you're doing this for the first time, maybe you missed that day that we wrote this down, but if you're doing this for the first time, give yourself a good like 5 to 7 minutes to do this before diving into the next part that I'm about to say, so that you're doing this from an unbiased lens. But after we had you guys write that down, the next invitation was to look at your list again, the non negotiables list. And I wanted you to put an asterisk or a star next to all of the practices that are on your list that are for you and you alone and do not involve other people. Don't know, but I suspect that for some people, family time probably makes the list, or time with spouse, time with partner. And it's a beautiful thing to have on your list. But I wanted you to sort through what you do that is solely just for you and is you spending time with yourself, you checking in with yourself. And part of the reason for that, and this was something that we didn't really get into in class, is I was curious if anybody had a list that didn't have anything on there that is just for them. My hope is that you kind of have a mix of both, but it wouldn't surprise me if anybody had a list that their entire list was connected to other people. It's not a bad thing that it involves other people, but I would be curious if there is something on your wish list that is for you, just for you, how would it change your world if you could integrate you having some time for yourself, or you showing up without the pressure or expectation of also showing up for other people. And so that was part of the reason for that. And like I said, we didn't really get to chat about it, and is something that is probably going to circle around in the coming weeks as we continue to lean into this work. I think when I asked you guys, I used the word cautiously, but we talked about what are the selfish things that you get to do for yourself. That was kind of invite number one. And then the follow up to that was also, of the things that you put a star or asterisk next to, what is the one that is most important for you? That one thing that you do for yourself that is the kind of omega of your non negotiables. And as you're listening to this, what I would invite you to reflect back on is that thing that you star and you made notation of, how often do you get to do that? So this is the thing that you are saying is on your non-negotiable. So it's something you do for yourself that is you for you. Do you get to do it as frequently as you would like? And so you've basically identified for yourself these things that matter, that hold a lot of weight for you getting to show up for yourself, for your family, for your job, and you feel less stressed. It helps you feel clear. It helps you feel grounded. Do you get to do it at the frequency that you would like to be doing it? And if so, great. And if not, kind of a follow up question that we didn't address in class is why not? All of this, again, is just to help you identify what are the things that matter to you, what are the things that you get to do that help you show up in life in the way that you want to show up and feels good for you to show up, both for yourself and for the people in your life. That was kind of the baseline, right? This evolved over a couple days. And what I would kind of, again, an additional invite here is if you look at your wish list, why do you have a hard time, or why are you not able to make space for the things that are on your wish list? Is it time? Is it resources? Is it having the energy to do it? And I would say that it's on your wish list for a reason. And one of the possible areas for you to explore is, what would it be like to work that in? If it is something that you would love for it to be a daily practice, what would it be like to do it once this month, right? If you're not doing it at all, doing it once is great. And I think we have this thought that if I can't do it the way that I want to do it, I just won't pick it up. But doing it once over the course of the month is better than none. And then when we do that, right, what would it be like for us to do that once a week? So pick a day, pick a time, and what would it be like for us to work that in? It's now moving from our wish list to something that is not quite non-negotiable yet. We're still negotiating our time, our resources, and energy with this, but we are moving in the direction of getting it to play the role that we want it to play in our lives. So that is, as you're watching this and you're thinking back on what you wrote down, and maybe new things are popping in your head, how do we simplify that in a way to where it feels doable and attainable? And this leads us into kind of our early week this week, our writing topic, which was around, how do we simplify life? Our expectations of what we think we should be doing, could be doing. We often put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do all the things all the time, all at once, every day. And it's great to work towards having life feel light, and maybe easy is not the right word, but less challenged and smooth. That's kind of the ultimate goal, right? Is for things to feel smooth and like we've got things where we need them and want them, and things are just kind of trucking along. And that's the goal. We feel good. And that's not how life always goes. Sometimes things happen. We get news that we weren't expecting, whether that's to us or somebody in our family, or we hear that connected to, maybe it's a close friend, and it kind of knocks us off kilter a little bit. Sometimes work just gets stressful, and we didn't plan for that. And so there's a lot of different variables about how life shakes us up and challenges our footing. In those moments, how often do we expect ourselves to continue to move through life at the same rate, pace, and emotional presence as when everything is going smooth and we feel great, right? And I would say, I know from our work in the treatment room that most people, when they come in and they're frustrated or they're just feeling stagnant in what they're doing, it's because they are holding on to the expectations of what they think they should be accomplishing. And yet life is throwing them a curveball. So What would it be like for us to simplify life? And that ties back to our practices. When we feel like we are struggling a little bit, how do we, in the moments that we get to exhale, how do we recalibrate ourselves and say, okay, I would love to get all 10 of these things done. And it is just not going to happen today. It's not going to happen today, tomorrow. It's probably not going to get done this week. What are the things that I need to do, the needs versus wants, in order to feel like I'm still moving forward and I'm still on path with the things that I need to get done? But how do I put down the pressure of feeling like I have to be this person that is just crushing it all the time? And so that was kind of the general question we presented on Monday is, looking back at our list, what are the practices on that list that feel like they simplify life for us? It could be as simple as I need to sit down in the morning with my cup of coffee and give myself 10 minutes before I look at my email and I pick up my phone. I need 10 minutes of quiet before I start my day. And if you could choose 1 to 2 things, and this could be connected to your list or not, but if I could pick 1 to 2 things that I do for myself that make me feel lighter and more focused and don't feel like they apply pressure when I'm already stressed or I'm getting over being sick or when I just don't feel like I'm operating at my best. What are those things? And can we be honest about it? And the challenge that was presented was to oversimplify it. For those of you that are getting to the gym 4 to 5 days a week, right? Like that feels probably essential to you in some way, shape, or form. And on those weeks that life just gets bananas, what if the actual practice was getting to the gym 3 days? That extra day or 2 missed throughout the week may make a difference in how you feel on those days, absolutely, and I don't discount that. But if you make it in 3 days and you're holding yourself to the expectation of 5 and you don't make it, are you beating yourself up about that, right? Which was kind of another layer of conversation that evolved throughout the week of how much grace do we give ourselves around that. And I know that there are worlds and opinions on being able to show up for yourself anyways. And I'm not saying to not show up. I would love to have you guys here. But what I'm saying is that pressure that you feel the need to have to be there is where we feel like we're letting ourselves down and where we feel like we're challenged. And what would it be like to take that week and be like, man, I needed that meal out with my partner more than I needed that workout. And being able to do that and take that time, that was recharging. And that was on the other side of the week that I'm having. I needed that. Now, I think the follow up to that is if we are negotiating those things with ourselves every week on the regular, how do we take inventory of what our practices actually are? To do it 1 week is not a big deal. And hopefully, we feel like we can give ourselves grace and a lot of space to honor that on a given day. If that feels like that opportunity is popping up week after week, month after month, it's no longer us giving ourselves space. There's probably a tipping point there where do we need to look at a bigger picture of how we're showing up in life and how we're managing stress and are we recovering well? Are we fueling ourselves? How are we sleeping? All of those things. And all of this conversation and messaging here and the writing that we've been doing is to draw some attention to yourself around, are you aware of the little things that you're doing throughout your days, throughout your weeks Do they feel like they're moving you in the direction of the life that you want to be living for yourself, or do they feel like they're taking away from that? And if they are supportive and nourishing and all of those things, do we still show up for ourselves in those practices when life gets challenging? And when we step away from those things, is it intentional or is that the struggle? The video that we talked about last week kind of laid a very thin layer of this time of year and why we're doing these practices to begin with. But the fall season is about us taking inventory of what is nourishing us, what is providing value to the life that we want to live, and what are some things that we need to let go of. One of the things that goes on that list that we tell our patients every year around this time is some of that is our own expectations. It's thoughts and ideas and the I can't do that because, or I shouldn't do that because. What if we put all those stories down and just simplified life and did the things that felt good and released all of the extra weight of thinking that it should or could be different? And how do we honor the ebb and flow that life is rather than getting super attached to what we think it should be, and just be honest about, man, like this week is really challenging, or I'm having a really challenging month, I'm having a really challenging year, right? And we're trying to, potentially inch our way back to these places that feel steady and sturdy and nourishing. But what if we gave ourselves permission to not have to be on all the time, to not have to be thriving all the time, and recognize it as just another ebb and flow of where we're at versus, oh, I'm doing something wrong and I'm failing or whatever that may be. So that kind of led us into the end of the week conversations that's coming, and we'll do a follow-up video next week on that. But as you're sitting with this to kind of bring this all full circle, and like I said, maybe you're doing this practice for the first time. I know this is another conversation that we're going to share publicly outside of our gym space. So maybe you're someone watching this and are going to start leaning into some of these writings. Start with creating that list of your non-negotiables. What are the things that matter the most to you? And it doesn't have to make sense, but if it matters to you, it matters. And so write it down. And the second list is a wish list of things that would feel good and supportive. Maybe you get to the gym 3 days a week right now and you would love to get that fourth day, right? That fourth day is on your wish list. The 3 days are your non-negotiable. And of all of those things, what is for you, just for you, and probably feels a little bit selfish in some ways, but selfish in a good way? And how often do we lean into those practices when life gets tough? Hopefully, that our instinct is to lean on those things when life gets challenging, but oftentimes we get swept away in it and put a lot of pressure on ourselves to just keep doing all the things that we know we have to get done. But this is, and I think I said this to you guys this week in the gym, but this is your personal permission to simplify life when things get challenging. And if you find yourself oversimplifying on the regular, how do we take a look at how we're moving through life in general? Because if we find that we're having to constantly sacrifice and negotiate and all of those things, maybe there's different conversations that need to be had about how we're approaching things in general. And so these are all much bigger topics and bigger conversations to be had, and a continuation of conversation ultimately that needs to be had. None of this is as simple as do this, don't do this. And I fully recognize that, but we have to start somewhere. And so this is where we're at. And it's been I think this week with the writing practice, we've integrated a little bit more, I'm not going to call it conversation, but a little more context around why we're asking the questions that we're asking. And all of this is leading to an offering that we're going to be giving you guys in person coming very soon. So if you need a little more of it or wanting a little more of it and you're one of our gym members, we're going to be setting aside some time to get together and have some of these conversations in person. If you're at home, you're listening to this and you're just, maybe some of the questions are coming up in the gym and they're still scratching at the back of your brain. Hopefully, this gives you a little bit more space and more words to just see where it leads you. Maybe it sparks some conversation in your house around the things that matter for you and your partner or your kids. And yeah, how do we simplify that? And how do we make sure that the things that we're doing them on purpose and there's intention behind what we're doing, and they're ultimately helping us build and create a life that we love, that we don't feel like we need an escape from, that feels nourishing most of the time. And even when things get hard, we feel like we have those things that we can lean into to kind of help us get through. So I'm looking forward to catching up again next week with some of these topics. And to our gym members, I'll have another video coming to you guys very soon about gym updates, but I wanted to be sure to hop on and give this little bit of a catch up and check in around our writing practices. So you guys are doing great. Keep showing up for yourselves. Keep doing the work. And like I said last week, if you need any extra support or help or anything is coming up for you as we do this, reach out to a coach. We'd love to set aside some time to chat with you and make sure you feel like you've got a nice anchor point for this work as we continue to go forward. So yeah, we'll chat soon and I'll see you guys at the gym.